This, if y'all would have came 6 months ago, honestly, this thing was literally full all the way, just about as far as you can see, with all debris. This is what's left.
On October 10th, 2018, we were hit by one of only 4 Category 5 storms to make landfall in the continental United States.
If you have a situation like you do at Tyndall,
Some of the fencing that was around the base that went down.
then everything is different. Every building on that base was damaged in some way.
Is the military ready for climate change?
I don't believe it is. Climate change is happening. These are issues that affect districts around the country, bipartisan. Weather and climate change and the superstorms, no party boundary. They're going to hit where they hit.
As far as Congress as an institution passing a law that might combat climate change, what do you think?
Well, I don't think you'll ever have that as long as you have the Republican Party in charge of one of the houses, and as long as you have a Republican in the White House.
Climate change is real, it is affecting the military, and these are not things that you get a choice to believe in or not believe in. As a student, I studied climate change a great deal as a high school debater, actually. I actually believe in science. At no point in the scientific method at the end do you say, well, does the testing of my hypothesis align with my political ideology? Does it align with viewpoints I've taken in campaigns? You don't get that flexibility in the scientific method. And so we're going to have to either become resilient on the front end to climate change, or we're going to have to pay the far more expensive costs on the back end.
The impacts of climate change on infrastructure, especially military infrastructure, can be very expensive.
The base doesn't have financial resources in the bank to do all the repairs that we need to do. We certainly have contracts on base that do routine maintenance, but these are small things, fixing a leaky roof. These are things like fixing a water main break that breaks in your sewage system. This is not your bases, half the buildings on your base need to be replaced. No, we definitely don't carry that kind of money. I don't know that any of us ever plans to get hit by a Category 5 hurricane. I mean, this is a very, very rare event in recorded history for the United States. So this is definitely a one-off event.
Is the military right now preparing for a changed climate?
Well, it has to.
It's the military's responsibility to prepare for these contingencies, and we see that they're happening.
Colonel Laidlaw actually made it mandatory for the all personnel to leave the base. Prior to, it was, I believe it was 48-hour notice. He actually got all the aircraft, what he could fly out of here.
What would have happened if he hadn't?
I would hate to even think. It could have been ugly,
They just need to react to current realities.
Offutt Air Force Base in the middle of the country went underwater. You're already seeing Norfolk having sunny day floods.
You're going to start getting more and more flooding at these bases over time. The main road into Norfolk Naval Station floods several times a year. And, in 20 years, they're expecting it to flood daily.
Further amendments on this section of the bill.
The amendment that I authored in the 2018 NDAA was a bipartisan amendment.
Mr. Langevin votes aye. Mr. Bishop.
There was an attempt by one of my Republican colleagues to strip the language out that required the report on how climate change is affecting military installations. We were in the minority at the time, so there was no degree of certainty that the amendment would survive, and unless 23 of my Republican colleagues joined with Democrats to defend that language, and we had 46 Republicans that joined with it.
The politics that surround the question of greenhouse gas mitigation, these are the types of debates that have consumed, especially the conservative majority on the Hill.
First movie where we started, it's a remake of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's the Green New Deal edition, so it's just called trains.
And so what we don't want to see happen is the debates over how to mitigate climate change overshadowing these other debates which have been less controversial, which is how does, for example, the military adapt to the impacts on infrastructure. We don't want to see the oxygen of the climate change debate sucked out of the room with the arguments that have to do with green energy in the United States.
It's unfortunate that leaders in Congress are more willing to respond to the impacts of climate change after the fact. Congress needs to specifically designate resources to respond to climate change, but also to prepare for climate change on the front end.
Is Congress doing anything in the defense authorization or defense appropriations to say, yes, we want you to prepare for this?
I think you're beginning to see some stuff coming out of particularly House appropriations and House in the House Armed Services Committee.
Now that the Democrats are in charge.
Now that the Democrats are in charge. And I don't like for this to be a partisan issue because the military should be nonpartisan. This puts everybody at risk.
What happens when the big storm does come? What are we going to do about it, and how are we going to ride it out, and what's going to happen to our infrastructure? While we don't expect to have more hurricanes, we expect them to be stronger or wetter. And so we'll see how that bears out, but I think it's not unreasonable to expect that what has happened in the past may not be what we see in the future.